Welcome to Promo Insiders, the ASI Media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm Teresa Hegel, Executive Editor of Digital Content, and today I'm joined by Gia Machlin of EcoPlum to talk about their sustainability journey and steps the promo industry can take to reduce reliance on plastics. Thanks for joining us today, Gia.
Thanks for having me, Teresa.
So can you tell me a little bit about how EcoPlum got its start and also why sustainability and eco-friendly business practices are so important to you?
Sure. So I kind of like to say that EcoPlum is not a promotional products company that got into sustainability. It's a sustainability company that got into promotional products. We started off as actually a green shopping rewards network. I started EcoPlum in 2007. I had been in the healthcare software industry for a very long time. I had started my own software company and I had sold it and was looking for, something different to do. And at the time I had young kids and I was very concerned, some of the environmental challenges that we had. Although at the time I wasn't that, certainly not as knowledgeable as I am now about the issues. But I knew that something needed to be done. So I wanted to try to make my own small difference, whatever it could be, with my entrepreneurial background. And so I started EcoPlum. And like I said, it was to reward people for shopping green. And we looked for products that were eco-labeled and certified green in some way. And then people would get points for that. And then it sort of morphed over time into just a consumer-facing e-commerce site for fashion items, jewelry, skincare, and home items. And that was the first that's how it was going along for a while. And we got a call from a Fortune 500 company that had discovered some of our reclaimed wood products, specifically a smartphone holder made out of reclaimed wood. And they wanted about 1,000 of those with their company name on them. And I said, sure, we can do that. And overnight, at that time, that one sale was more than we were making, in a whole year selling fashion items online practically. So saw that it was a good opportunity to make a bigger difference and reach more people and reach people on a business level. And my expertise had always been in business to business anyway. So the business to consumer was not really, I'd say, my forte. So got back into the B2B world and realized at the time that decided to get into promotional products, but still with a sustainability focus. And at that time saw that there was a big need for sustainable options in this $24 billion industry.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been changing recently, but in those early days, there were not that many things out there.
Right.
So one thing that kind of got you on my radar was the Business Coalition for a Global Plastics Treaty. I saw that, and I saw that you guys were part of this, and
Mm-hmm.
you're a smaller company,
Yeah.
but so that I think that kind of caught my eye too, because it's a lot of like really big companies that are on this list. So can you tell us a little bit about like what this effort is all about and why it's something that the promo industry should be keeping an eye on?
Okay. So yeah, we were really thrilled to receive an invitation. It was actually back in November 2020 that we received an invitation to join what was then it was a business call for a binding global plastics treaty at the UN. And so we were one of the very first signatories of this manifesto calling for a binding Global Plastics Treaty. That then the UN met in March 22, and at that time took a lot of the recommendations of this group of businesses, but they did not come up with a binding global plastics treaty. But at the time, they came up with a resolution. So it was the UN Environmental Assembly in March 22 that came up with that resolution to proceed with an intergovernmental negotiation committee and process towards a legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution. And then after that, the coalition was formed and convened for the first time in September, and it was convened by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the World Wildlife Fund, along with 85 organizations that were the initial signatories, plus other, of this business call, plus some other companies that came along during that time. And yeah, we're just, just really, it's an honor for us to be, alongside companies like IKEA and L'Oreal and Unilever and Pepsi. It's just like, wow, and Danone, and it's just great. So, and that's how we got involved. And if you'd like, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about what the coalition's goals, vision, and goals are.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so the coalition, and it consists of companies large and small, as well as NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and we're all kind of working together for a shared vision. And that vision is for a circular economy where plastic doesn't actually become pollution. And so plastic, maintains its value and it stays in the economy. And so I kind of want to just read one thing that they say, which is in the coalition's vision statement. It's to end plastic pollution for good and increase the pace of change. We need a system-wide transformation that prevents plastic waste from being created in the first place, using a circular economy approach that tackles all steps of the value chain with a high level of ambition. So it's, to get the circular economy going, to prevent plastic pollution, and to put the systems in place to do that. And the outcomes that the coalition would like to see is sort of threefold. It's a reduction in plastic production, especially plastics that are short-lived, like single-use plastics, as well as plastics that have high leakage rates, like microplastics. The circulation of plastic items, if they cannot be eliminated, to keep them in the economy as long as possible at their highest value. And then the prevention and remediation of, whatever is left to keep it from the leakage into the environment. So those are the main, outcomes that the coalition would like to see. And the coalition exists to bring these policy recommendations forward to the UN for an ambitious and effective treaty, and to keep all of to be an inclusive group of organizations that come up with these recommendations, to coordinate advocacy efforts so that we're sort of joined in strength, and also to bring confidence back to the business community that, something is going to be done, and, hopefully. And so that's why it exists. And, we'd like to see the treaty come along. And with this resolution that happened in March, it's moving along, and there's a possibility of a binding treaty, global treaty by the UN by 2024. So it's really incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, for the promo industry, obviously, there's a lot of items that are made out of plastic. And not all of them are, single use or anything like that. There's a lot of reusable stuff, but I think there has been criticism about there being too high of a reliance on plastic. What are some things that the promo industry can do to kind of reduce its reliance or kind of help with this treaty, help with the circularity of the plastic industry?
Sure. So I know that the treaty is specifically about plastics, but I think it's important to just look at sustainability overall when we look at the promotional products industry. And I think first and foremost, we need to eliminate the cheap gimmick products that, whether they're made out of plastic or not, that are very likely to never get used. And, we all know what we're talking about. You go to a conference and you get some things in a bag, and before you even check out of your room, they're in the trash, and nobody really ever sees them. So we need to eliminate those. And two would be to replace products that are made from plastic with other renewable sources. So there are so many different materials that promotional products can be made out of that are renewable, such as bamboo, wood, or hemp, and other natural sources. So we can, move away from plastic. But if you are going to offer plastic, I think it's very important to make sure that it's plastic that's already out there in circulation. So post-consumer recycled plastic is really what we should be looking to for our promotional products. For example, we sell a lot of pens that are made out of recycled plastic bottles, and they look nice and they write well, and and we're keeping the plastic out there and not going into the waste stream.
Right.
The third thing is, I think you said that this already does, we already have a lot of this in the promotional products industry, but to offer products that do replace single-use disposable plastics. But I think what we need to be careful about is that, yeah, it's great to have reusable totes and, bamboo utensil sets, stainless steel coffee mugs, water bottles made out of maybe borosilicate glass or something like that. But we need to be careful that we're not creating one problem, getting rid of one problem, creating another. And what I mean by that is that, a lot of promotional products companies sell these reusable bags that are made out of non-woven material, and that's really just a tougher plastic, but they're not that durable, and they break after several uses. So we're almost replacing like a cheap plastic with a plastic that's even harder to break down over time. So I think it's important to say, well, is this product replacing single-use plastics, and is it something that is going to be used many, many times over and eventually biodegrade in a way that, it much quicker than plastics do.
Right,
So,
right. And I think that's something we hear a lot more about is higher value items in the industry, right? Like,
yeah,
trying to kind of steer people toward, buying maybe fewer things, but each of them being like a higher value item. But it's a conversation that you have to have with your end users and try to convince them on something that maybe they just want to spend a
right.
certain amount of money, and they're not really thinking about like what is actually going to be the best use of for their brand.
Right. And that's always a challenge, but we need to look at the bigger picture. And another thing I guess that I didn't mention is looking at things made out of upcycled materials. So products that have had a previous life. So like coasters made out of recycled chopsticks, or mouse pads made out of recycled tires, notebooks made out of apple peels and apple byproducts, things like that. So those are great examples of a circular economy, and the possibilities are really endless as to what we can do. And
Yeah.
I keep looking over here because I want to show you a couple products. I think one of the greatest reusable bags are these foldable Chico bags, because they are made of recycled plastic, and then they can be used, and they last for a really long time, and they can be used over and over. But not only that, but because they fold into their own little pouch, I carry 3 of these around in my purse every day. And so I can't tell you how many plastic bags I've replaced, single-use plastic bags I've replaced with this product. So that's a good example of a reusable product. And then these are the pens made out of recycled plastic bottles, and I love the way they write, and they're a lot of fun. So I just wanted to show you a couple of
Yeah, so I mean,
examples.
I think that's one thing to remember too, is that, these products can still be fun and joyful, and people really like them. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, focusing on the
Right.
sustainability doesn't have to like suck the life out of
Right,
promo.
exactly.
It can still be a fun, exciting, useful product.
Exactly. The apple peel notebooks are a lot of fun, and they smell like apples, like Granny Smith
Mhm.
apples. And,
Yeah.
people love the thought that they're made out of apples, and so
Yeah.
those are really fun.
Awesome. Well, do you have any other tips or strategies for distributors who want to kind of move toward a more sustainable, business practice, but aren't really sure how to get started?
Sure. So I think um, one thing that's important is to really move towards sustainability as a company altogether, and not just dabble in it and just, say, there are many distributors that have an eco-friendly line, but
Hmm.
that sort of doesn't, it's nice to have, but if you're still offering the other products, you're not really committed to reducing plastic and being sustainable. So I think more distributors should look at their overall business practices, and overall how they choose the products that they offer. Do they have a means of verification when someone says that something, when a supplier says that something is recycled or calls it eco-friendly? I mean, I can't tell you how many things I say, it's eco-friendly. Well, why is it eco-friendly? And then you look into it, and there really isn't anything to back up that claim. So it's kind of building up the means of verification, the ability to question and understand what suppliers are actually telling them about products. Another thing they could do is become a B corporation like we did, which is, we've changed our bylaws to ensure that our decisions take into account all of our stakeholders, including not just our shareholders, so our employees, the community, our suppliers, the customers, and the environment. And those are all equally as important as the shareholders, and that's what a B corporation is. So they should maybe look into that. It's quite a process. It took us about 2 years to get, and only I think a third to about a half of the companies that apply for B Corp get it. But if you get it, it shows how committed you really are. We're also, another thing they could do is we're also a Green America Gold certified company. We're members of a lot of different sustainable coalitions that they could look into, other distributors could look into. The American Sustainable Business Council, it's now called the network, sorry. The Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education is another one. And like this business coalition now that we're part of for the Global Plastics Treaty, or just joining the Fair Labor Association. Those are some things they can do. And I just want to maybe say that the the first step can be looking at what area of your company is contributing the most to needless waste. Maybe most of your products are coming from overseas, so start looking maybe more locally to try to reduce transportation emissions. Or maybe it's that you don't do any kind of durability testing when you bring products on board, and so start doing that. So whatever it is like, look at your company as a whole and say, what are we doing a lot of that is kind of producing waste or emissions that we can try to, start to reduce.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes one of the nice things for a business is that when you look at things like that, you might actually save yourself money too, which, is,
Exactly.
which is an added bonus, for your bottom line.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, if you look at your company and you run your company with an equal emphasis on people, planet, and profit, that things actually start to fall into place. And so it's, it almost becomes, just part of the fabric of what you do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Gia. This was really great. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Teresa. It was great to be here.